Hi, and welcome everybody to the AppsEvents Google Summer Summit. In fact, this is the last time we can welcome you to the Summer Summit because I'm sure it's the end of summer, certainly in the Northern Hemisphere. For our friends in the Southern Hemisphere, of course, you're just getting towards spring, and I'm sure we can celebrate that in other ways very, very soon. As you can see on the screen, I'm James Sayre. I'm a Director of AppsEvents for Asia. Dan Taylor, CEO for AppsEvents, and Sethi de Clercq, the master video maker. I'm sure you're familiar with him already. We will pass over to them very, very soon. But before we do, let's just have a look to see what we've got ahead of us in the next few hours. So we have a summer summit. If anybody's watching this right now, we've got a giveaway for tickets for our future boot camps and summits. We've got lots of exciting events over the next few months. So please be sure to have a look at the registration here. Just register to win free tickets with appsevents.com/Google Summer Summit. We'll be sure to show that link a little bit later as well. Very excited again to share that Acer is our sponsor for this event. We're very, very happy to have him on board. And we'll be hearing from Roberto, who's actually based in Italy, a little bit later. And he's going to talk about the impact of Chromebooks, particularly on education, and especially during this year, because Chromebook sales have grown off the charts this year. So we'll hear from Roberto a little bit later. Once again, here's the link. Here's a short link, gsummit.link/Acer. Make sure you go there to learn about free seats for any future event with AppsEvents. Please share online on Twitter. Please share online. Hashtag GoogleP. Hashtag, we think we've lost Dan Taylor now. I'm just going to remove Dan for a second. I think, Dan, you got a problem with your camera just there. So hashtag GooglePD, AppsEvents1. Please share on Twitter about this event. Dan Taylor, as I mentioned before, the CEO of AppsEvents. I'm going to bring him in again.
Can you hear me? It looks okay to me.
Have you got it okay, Sethi?
Yeah, all good. Everything's working fine.
Awesome. So Dan Taylor, AppsEvents CEO, we'll hear from him in a moment, and then Sethi, the YouTube star. Later on this evening, I'm going to hear from Dan Pardy. He's based in Qatar. He's going to talk about the basics of Google Classroom. I'm very excited to welcome back Nate Gildart, and he's going to be talking about some of the geo tools from Google. Okay, well, let's turn it over to the first session. We've already welcomed everybody. And what we're going to now talk about is a little round table, lessons learned from working from home for 8 years. And we all have different perspectives on this. Myself as a teacher, and then obviously working with AppsEvents on the Google events. Sethi as a teacher, and then building his YouTube channel. And then obviously Dan Taylor, CEO of AppsEvents, who's been working remotely for many, many years. Dan, would you like to start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, thanks, James. Thanks, Sethi. Welcome, everyone. I was looking in the chat. We've got people here from Hong Kong, Saudi Arabia, Nepal, Japan, Auckland, New Zealand. So fantastic, guys. Welcome. Please ask questions. Manila, Philippines. It's really all across Asia and the Middle East. So please, guys, ask any questions you like. We'll monitor the chat and we'll jump in and ask them. It's a very informal session. Yeah, so as James said, I started AppsEvents. We're a Google partner and an ISTE partner. We do training for schools all around the world. And we've been a completely remote team for 8 years. I started AppsEvents in 12 years. I think, James, we've been working together for almost all that time, about 7 years. James obviously works for school and works as a math teacher. Sethi's also a teacher, but I've been doing this full time. So I've been working from home, and I've also been doing a lot of online teaching. We work doing training and teaching. We do things like this. So we've learned a lot about it. This is kind of not a new thing for us. Obviously, the pandemic has forced everyone into this situation, but I hope we can give maybe a few tips that can help people with what we've learned.
Sethi, do you want to properly introduce yourself and maybe talk about from your perspective about working from home, what you've been doing?
Thank you. Yeah, so basically my first experience with working from home was never planned. It was, I was becoming a teacher, and then I got into teaching, and I started taking some of my work home. So I started doing more and more planning at home, and I started taking all my marking home. And that was sort of a side of teaching that I was never really told about. And I'm sure that as many teachers watching this will agree that you're not always told about the amount of work you'll be doing at home. And so obviously there's been days that I have, obviously wasted a lot of time because I wasn't sure what I was doing working from home. And just over the years, I got more and more comfortable with the idea of setting up my own space to work from home. And then starting the YouTube channel, it became just a necessity to have a space and to have a sort of a structure in place to make working from home effective, because you don't want to be wasting time, and then that's time that you're not getting to spend with family and friends. And so yeah, that's sort of where my ideas will come from.
Great. And I think what would be really good to talk about is just to discover a little bit the difference between perhaps Dan working from home and managing AppsEvents, and then Sethi as a teacher and then also creating video content. Maybe we can look at those two perspectives.
Yeah, I mean,
Dan, yep.
Sorry, James, there's a delay there. Yeah, for me, what I find really good is you can break most tasks down into synchronous or asynchronous. So, a synchronous task is one that needs to be done, together with people at a certain time. So teaching is a classic synchronous task. It's done at a certain time. You need certain conditions with your office. Asynchronous tasks are tasks you can do whatever. So, let's say you work for a school in a support role, or even if you're a teacher and you have other responsibilities, you might fit these in a certain time if you're in an office or in a school. But when you're working from home, you've got a lot more freedom to organize these at different times. And I'm going to talk a bit about how I've adjusted my work tasks. But I think this is a really important thing when we're talking, especially because if we're talking teaching online, you need to have a lot of things we'll talk about in terms of more of a quieter environment, of a less distraction-free, a more distraction-free environment.
Absolutely. Do you want to jump in there, Sethi, and talk about teaching from home? Have you been teaching from home all over the summer, Sethi?
We have before the summer, so we did have our summer holidays, but before that, we obviously experienced some teaching from home. And I think one of the benefits I had was that I already had everything set up just the way I wanted it, and that is a privilege that I think many teachers have missed out on, because they were sort of thrown into the deep end and they had to learn how to swim. Whereas I'd already been doing my YouTube channel for about 4 years. I had an office set up. I had my lights set up, camera set up. Everything was good to go. I just transitioned from recording videos to live teaching. Now, the only thing that was different there was the times of the day, because I've always worked on my videos in the evenings and the weekends. Whereas online teaching, well, obviously you're sort of, you're stuck to the times of the day that your students are online and that you are delivering your lessons. And so that was the biggest difference. And then having that space, it was setting clear boundaries for everyone else in the house as well. Because if you're presenting a lesson, say 9 to 10, you don't want your 3-year-old son to suddenly barge through the door and say, "Oh, look at what I've painted." So it was sort of making sure that everyone is aware of what's going on. Don't just start your lesson without telling everyone else in the house that you're about to go live. I think that was a big one. But once that was sort of all set out and clear to everyone, it worked really well.
Yeah, I've had the additional challenge that I've been working from home. I think you've had this, Sethi. My wife has been working from home, and our kids have been studying online. And so, I mean, we're lucky we're in a house and we have all of those private spaces we can use. But I know that previously we lived in a condominium and we just would not have had the space to be able to get separation. So that's a big challenge, not just for people working online, but for families catering for their kids studying online as well. I remember back in the day, first when I was working with Dan, just with a laptop, just on the dining table, just getting it done. But by having the ability to work yourself into a corner, I've got my little broom cupboard here where I can work from, just having that space, which is kind of cordoned off for privacy, it really allows you that time to focus.
Definitely. So guys, I think what's really good is we've got a few topics we want to jump into. We're going to talk about work tips. We're going to talk about location and workspace, avoiding distractions, scheduling, and wellness. So James, if it's okay, we'll jump into work tips.
Let's go for it.
Clearly, we're Google guys. We love Google tools, but I mean, this works equally well with Microsoft. I mean, if you're working with some of these web-based tools, you already are in a situation to transition to online working, because Google, obviously we're using, for example, now on this call we're using YouTube, which is a Google product. We're sharing a Google Doc which has all our notes for what we're going to talk about. We use Google Classroom for sharing. We use Google Meet. So these tools work really well. So if you're lucky enough to already be using Google tools, I think it's important to say that you're already in a really good situation to deal with this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Sorry.
Yeah,
Carry on.
so we're working on a project right now, actually working with Google on a project. And I'm working with our team in Europe, and then we're working with Google global teams, which are in Asia, Latin America, Europe, and the US. And we're using Google Docs in excess to be able to collaborate. And I cannot imagine trying to do that in previous years to that level of collaboration. But we probably have 10 or 20 different people commenting on different assets that we're creating, but just be able to see all of those comments in real time and then look at revision histories and suggestions in Google Docs to see where we're really at. I cannot imagine what it'd be like without Google. Yeah, of course, Microsoft. I know Microsoft has, let's be honest, it's improved a lot over the last few years, and it's becoming very, very popular in schools. And a lot of schools are actually running Microsoft alongside Google now as well. Maybe that's something to discuss later on.
Definitely.
They're very, very powerful tools.
And I think, using online tools, there's the pluses, which we've just mentioned, but there's also the negatives. And one of them is oversharing. So anyone who's ever worked in an office knows of the misery of constantly being invited to meetings and spending half of your day being called into meetings. And I know I've certainly experienced that. But there's also the online equivalent. It's too easy to be attending too many video chats, number one. But also the thing people don't realize is there's a lot of group text chat. Obviously, if you're using G Suite, you've got groups and people can create group chat, and people can get added to too many group chat. And if you've got your notifications turned on, you're getting constantly pinged. So I want people to be really aware of, don't add people if you don't really need to talk to them in a group. And I would say turn your notifications off. If I've got to do any kind of work, any kind of writing, I have all my notifications off. I don't have WhatsApp open. I have my phone off. I think you've really got to block off the distractions. And people do that much better in a kind of work environment than they do at home, because they're used to having all these things on.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would like to add one more thing. I would add is also be mindful of how you share things. Because, for example, one example that I sometimes forget is you have different accounts as well. You have a private personal account, you have a school account, and then in my case, you've got accounts linked to training and accounts linked to the YouTube channel. And it's very easy to accidentally share things with all your accounts because it makes it easier for you to access things. Sure. However, that also means that you then get pinged 2, 3, 4 times by the same messages from the same people. And so that is something that I wasn't necessarily aware of, and I started sharing files and groups with myself to make it easier. But then actually it turned out to be a huge distraction. So
sure. Great. I wanted to jump quickly onto location and workspace and talk a bit about getting your work environment set up. Now, we've got to be very clear. There's a best to worst spectrum when it comes to remote working, and not everyone has the luxury of having a dedicated workspace. So kind of the best option is obviously a dedicated room. If you've got a house, we've got a colleague, Gitto, in Wales, who actually has a shed, and a very nice shed built into an office. So the best option is obviously, if you can do it, get yourself a dedicated office room, even if it's really small. James's room where he is it's not much more than a desk and a bit of space. It makes a huge difference. Second best for me is a repurposed bedroom. Use your spare bedroom. I've also got that at home. Put a desk in there. You can work. It's still a place people don't come. And then obviously, if you don't have any of these, the worst option is your living room. Now, everyone has a different opinion. My opinion is you can buy really small compact desks. I would always have a desk as opposed to the dining room table. I know some people love the dining room table. I personally don't. I think a dedicated desk is better. And setting the boundaries that your spouse or your children know, this is the place, this is where the work goes on. You don't play around with the things there. You don't use this desk. Get an office chair, even if it's a cheap office chair, you'll have some kind of lumbar support. You won't be working on the dining room table. So I think if you are in a situation, we've got people on the call from Hong Kong. I've spent a lot of time in Hong Kong. People generally live in very small apartments, don't have the luxury of lots of spare rooms. I would still, if you can, have a dedicated desk. I'm curious, guys, if you got anything to add on that topic.
I've seen a few people talking about wellness, and there's loads of articles about just the correct seating position. And I think it's really, really important. You're talking about the chair, you're talking about the desk. The most important thing is not the cost of these things. It's just get comfortable. Get at the right height, get your monitor at your eye level. There's loads of articles out there already to look. get your monitor at eye level, get yourself with your straight back, sitting comfortably on your chair at the right height. That's the most important thing. Everything else is secondary. Dining table, if it's got to be the dining table, if it's only 1 or 2 hours a day, that's fine. It can work. I've used it for many, many years. Sethi, I'm sure you're the same. I'm sure you use the dining table. It can work.
I balance it. Sometimes it's a case of, okay, do I really want to go all the way up to the top floor to the office to get this done, or will it be faster to just do it on the dining table? But again, I do agree with what Dan was saying, is it's not ideal, because it does feel like it's a place where you have a meal together, and where there's conversations and there's distractions, and there's a fridge right next to you, and so it's very easy to get up and get distracted and just go and get a drink and get something to eat. Or whereas a dedicated space away from that, or even just turning your chair so that you're not facing it, that can make a huge difference.
Yeah. I want to add as well about monitors. There was a really interesting study from the University of Utah, which looked at people moving from an 18-inch monitor to a 24-inch widescreen monitor. And they gave them a task. And people with a smaller monitor, it took on average 8 hours. And with a larger monitor, it went down to 5.5 hours. So if you can, even getting a cheap external monitor is great for 2 reasons. Number one, it genuinely does increase your productivity. And if you're teaching online, you'll have your Google Meet or your Zoom call. You'll have, maybe your lesson. You'll have a lot more space. So, and there's a second added benefit of just the posture. If you're always looking down at a laptop, it's really bad for your spine. And really your kind of eye level should be kind of like mine is, like close to the top of the monitor. So I would say if you can afford a monitor, it's definitely will make a huge productivity increase. And there's a second option. I've gone crazy. I've got two 27-inch monitors here on my screen. So I'm the extreme version. And this same study showed that if you're working with a lot of spreadsheets, having the dual monitor vastly increased your productivity. But if you were doing mainly editing and things like tests, like for example, Sethi's doing, a single widescreen monitor was better than the twin ones.
Just want to jump in there. Jennifer is online. I know that she's in Hong Kong. She does a lot of training and consulting from Hong Kong. And she just mentioned a really good tip here, actually. Gaming chairs are cheaper than office furniture. I bought my son a cheap gaming chair. It's this big armchair. It's got like a headrest. It's super comfortable. I bought myself the expensive office chair I'm sitting on. It's not comfortable. It's absolutely right. Check out the gaming equipment. They've already done all the research into what works. She also talks about gaming monitors as well. I don't know how about the rest of the world, but in Asia, gaming equipment is really, really cheap. It's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, Acer have a great wraparound monitor. I've been eyeing one up in my local electronics store. It looks really good.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things about gaming. I mean, gaming has become such a big business that all this equipment is readily available now, and it makes a huge difference. And sometimes it is easily overlooked that you don't have to go to an Office Depot to get a nice chair. You could just go to your local store and get that gaming chair, and it'll be incredibly comfortable.
Yeah, fantastic, guys. So I want to talk also when it comes to the topic of location workspace about mixing it up, because as I said, I've been doing this for 8 years, and I think one of my few kind of good characteristics now is I can work from anywhere. But prior to AppsEvents, I was a management consultant. I worked with Deloitte for many years, so I was used to literally working in airport departure lounges, putting my headphones on. I'd work on airplanes, I'd work on trains, I'd work in cafes, and I think a great way to approach this, if you're not teaching all the time, and most teachers, even if you're a teacher, you still have free periods, is to mix it up. So I quite often, like this morning, for example, I took my laptop, I went to a cafe across the road, I had some breakfast, I worked for half an hour, I had to write a document. So I think mixing it up is great. You've got two options, obviously, cafes and co-working spaces. Co-working spaces are obviously shared offices. If you live in a major city, they're everywhere. I've tried many co-working spaces, and they always have plans. You don't have to do a full-time membership. You can usually do 1 day a week, or you can get X number of hours per week. And I think these are great. They're not great for teaching because obviously, there's a lot of distractions. But for non-teaching tasks, I highly recommend, not every day, but several days a week, mixing up your working environment. For me, it works really well. Any comments, you two?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in there. I'm going to say this. Co-working spaces, great. I find myself always talking to people and meeting people in co-working spaces. Yeah. Here in Bangkok, I'll go to a Thai coffee shop, doesn't matter, Starbucks or wherever, everybody's speaking in Thai. That enables me to really focus on my work. Co-working spaces, I am terrible about focusing. They're great spaces for internet and getting a desk, but it's unavoidable to have that networking side of it, which is a good thing, obviously, in many ways. But for focus, I do like the Thai restaurants or coffee shops where nobody's going to speak to me and I can really focus on that. What do you think, Sethi?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, a co-working space, I can see how it works for people, just not for me. I think there's too many distractions. There's too many, too many interactions with people. Whereas a coffee shop, people don't necessarily expect you to speak to them. Whereas in a co-working space, people are there to network sometimes. Yes, they're working, but they plug their earphones in, then they want to be left alone. And if they're not wearing them, then they want to network. And so I do feel that a coffee shop is definitely, for me personally, that's the way to go, because you can switch off and just
what I found with co-working spaces, I've always had a home office since, like I said, I've been doing this for 8 years, but I've mixed it up at certain times. Like James is known, I've just started working in a co-working space and I got sick of it and I went back to home, and then I tried a different co-working space and I got sick of that. I went home. I think mixed, if you do this long term, you do go through different phases and you want a bit more company, you don't. My next point actually is relevant to this, like noise cancelling headphones. Like if you are working in a co-working space, there's a lot of distractions. If you're at home and your children or your spouse are at home, especially if you're in the living room and there might be a TV and all kinds of things, which I'd recommend try not to do that. But if you have to do it, noise cancelling headphones are a godsend. If you're not somewhere where they're too sweaty, I've got a pair, the Bose ones. It really helps me shut out the distractions. It's not the best case scenario, but it definitely works.
Definitely. And also on the other end, sorry to interrupt, but on the other end as well, the microphone technology and the technology for online meetings, where you now have built-in noise cancellation and blurring functions. And so it gets better on both sides. So if you've got your noise cancelling headphones, you're not being distracted by the noise around you. But then with these new technologies now being pushed out, the person you're having a meeting with or a virtual meeting is no longer being distracted by the noise around you. So I do see how things are improving significantly.
And back to Jennifer's point, actually, because this is a really good one. Sometimes we think about the cost of everything here, but actually gaming headsets, the big gaming headsets with a microphone, certainly here in Asia, you can get them for $10, $20, $30, very, very cheap. And they go up from there. It doesn't have to be noise cancelling, but the big headphones where they filter out the noise that's external to you work very, very well as well.
It's funny, I'm seeing more and more people on video chats, and they've got their gaming headset with kind of the red lights coming out the side. And it's kind of, it's kind of, you would have been pretty comical a few years ago. Now it's just you chuckle and it's normal, but it's a funny thing, Also, the Apple, I've got a set of the Apple AirPods, which are noise cancelling. You can hold the button down, and that actually works surprisingly well. There's a lot of AirPods that do have noise cancelling as well as the big cans.
So we talked about
Sorry, guys. Sorry, James, carry on.
Go on, Sethi.
No, I was just saying, I saw Jennifer said something about sometimes when she's using noise cancelling headphones that she ends up shouting, and I think that's something that I've done as well. But there are some headphones that actually allow for sort of an input feedback where you can hear yourself as well. So that can help sometimes.
Yeah, I just threw this comment from Segun as well. Using an old mobile device, and we've had smartphones for 12 years now, probably more than 12 years. The full touchscreen smartphones. You can get a smartphone that may be 2 or 3 years old for $100 probably, that has a good webcam. You can connect it to your laptop, or you can use it standalone to run your classes from that. You don't even need to be at the computer anymore. Really, really good point there.
Yeah, so I want to talk a bit about schedule. So clearly, if you work for school, like most of you probably do, this is dictated by the school. But if you're not a teacher and you've got some asynchronous tasks, like we talked about, tasks that you can do in your own time, feel free to adjust your schedule. You don't have to do the kind of 9 to 5 or 8 till 4, 8 till 5 paradigm if it doesn't work well for you, if it's not a synchronous task. Like, just to give one example of myself, like before I had children and I lived in a small apartment, I used to start work about 9. I quite often go to the gym earlier. Now I get up around 5:30. I'll have some breakfast. I'll do some things. I'll get an hour's work done in the house when it's quiet before children and wife wake up. Then I'll go to work and I'll do the kind of gym later in the day or squash or whatever. So I've really adjusted. Like I quite often work now 5:30 till 2:30. I'll get, a solid 8 hours done, even, 8-9 hours. And I'll be finished in the afternoon. And I think, this is one of the positive things, and again, teaching has to be fitted into this because it's a fixed time. But for any other task, you might be an evening person and, maybe the family will go to bed. I know people that get 2 or 3 hours really good work done if they're a night owl and they like to go to bed later. Any input from you two on this? James first, I guess, and then Sethi.
Yeah, I know when I have those flexible days, it's great to get up, go for a run, get back to the desk, do some work for an hour or two before the family is awake, then hang out with the family for a while, and then continue work a little bit later, maybe somewhere remotely. It is a little bit, we talked about meetings before, it's a little bit more difficult being in school. When I'm having a meeting with Dan, I can say to Dan, look, I can't do this meeting, let's reschedule, or you go ahead and run the meeting. In schools, it's a little bit more structured. When you set up a meeting, you're generally expected to be there, you're expected to be at your desk from 8 until 4, whenever it may be, you're expected to be in those meetings. So teachers can probably are well aware that their days are a little bit more structured. It's interesting to see, and we're not going to talk really about teaching now, but since so many people have been teaching online and students have been learning remotely, there is a greater emphasis now on letting students work asynchronously much more and not just have them in online meetings for 6 hours a day. I mean, this is all changing. We're not here to talk about the teaching side of it, but that does free up teachers to be a little bit more flexible with their time as well.
Yep.
Sid, you got anything to add there?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you say. Even when you are in school, you have non-contact time, which can be used to plan your lessons and to mark and do your things that way. But that also applies to homework. So when you're doing your marking, when you do that, do it whenever is best for you. If you are, like Dan said, more of an evening person, well, maybe you're doing your marking then, and then you take little breaks in between your teaching. So it's sort of be willing to change your schedule to match how you feel, because also this week you might actually want to do the work during the day and then just relax in the evenings, and then the following week, well, just switch it up and don't be afraid to try that. Just see what works best for you. Definitely.
So final topic, we're getting close to the end. Yeah, Jennifer says the power of asynchronous learning. Thanks, Sagan, great comments. So wellness. Like there was a lot of studies from large companies, because people have to remember that this is not a new thing. People have been working from home for decades even, or working remotely. So long-term studies have shown that people worked many more hours from home to overcompensate for not being in the office or in the school. They really felt they were being judged more because they weren't working. And this is a common problem. So you have to really realize this. And you have to also realize that, like we talked about the asynchronous tasks, you can generally get the tasks done in less time. So be mindful of not putting too much pressure on yourself and not working too hard, because it really it's the norm as opposed to the exception.
Absolutely, especially when we got Dan calling you from Europe. Here's the challenge of remote work with a global team. If you're in the east of the globe, this is what happens. You get up early, you get all of those quiet hours of your work done, and you get people in Europe and the UK and then across to East Coast America. When they wake up, they start sending you messages. So you get the longest day if you're in Asia. I'm sure anybody here in Asia can empathize with that. Yes. But it is absolutely true, and you really have to be very, very strict with your timing around this. Dan gave me this advice years ago, in fact, is to delete your chat apps at a weekend, especially maybe Google Chat, just delete it off your phone, rather than just turn off notifications. Just remove it from your phone so you don't have that. In fact, just turn off notifications.
Annoyingly, Google has just put the chat back into the Gmail app now, which is really annoying. So if you have the old version, don't update it.
That's true. So, I mean, there's a few things there, but I think you have to be very guarded about your personal time. Set out when you're going to be working and when you're going to have that personal time.
Yeah, a few quick points. My rule is getting out of the house twice a day. If you live in a city, I generally go and pick up some takeaway for lunch, or rather than ordering some food, even if I bring food from home, I'll go for a walk. playing sport, I play squash in a league, and I do that 3 to 4 times a week. Before that, I used to do CrossFit. I make an effort, and actually, to be honest, working from home, the 8 years I've been doing it, I've got much more into sport because of this. Because I made myself, I know, like 4 times a week, I'm going to do some activity. So I've really planned this much more. I think everyone should exercise, obviously, at a minimum. If all you can do is walk, then go for a brisk walk every day. If you can't walk, obviously, taking some kind of physical exercise for anyone who can, I think is highly recommended. But also just doing some different activity, going away. People like to watch films. I find that too much screen time, but I've been doing something different away from the computer is really useful.
I agree. I mean, we've been playing so many board games as a family during this whole, period of online and distance learning. And I'm teaching online, and the children are studying online. And we've just been, we've not been watching television. We've been playing board games. Yeah. Just something completely different.
Yeah, and I can tell you now, my current situation. You probably see I'm in quite a large room. My evolution is, I've taken the home office a little step further. I actually now have my own office, about 15 minutes from my house. It's just for me. It's just for AppsEvents, so it's a small room. But what that means is I have the 15 minutes. I have a break at the end of the day. I go back home. I have a 15-minute break, and then I'm home. And it creates a bit of distance. But even if you don't have that option, I think creating some kind of routine around the end of the day where you go out for a walk or you do something, and then it's your family time or your time to see your friends. I think creating kind of an artificial boundary, so it's not so, because it's easiest, especially, I'll give you an example. When I was single, lived alone, work just blended into the evening. I'd never switch off work. I'd go and I'd make some food. I'd see some friends. When I'd come back, the computer was on. I'd jump back in again. And it really, I don't think it was the right thing. I don't think I got more work done. In fact, I'm sure I didn't get more work done because of this. I definitely relaxed less. Anything to add, guys, on that point?
Working from home is a double-edged sword. You've got the comforts from home, and you've got the distractions from home too. I mean, it's as simple as that. I love the fact that I've got my kitchen, I've got my coffee machine, I've got all my food I want. It's all there, ready for taking. I can go outside. Very lucky in Asia, you live in a village. You've generally got a swimming pool to use. If you're living in a condominium, the same thing. You've got all of these distractions awaiting you. It's very comfortable, but you got to be very, very strict with your time. I think that's my closing comment.
Great. Well, I think that great wraps it up. Thanks, everyone. Please, any more comments, put them in. We'll jump into the chat right now, and we'll join. And back to you, James.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you for joining us. Dan, I'm going to let you go and enjoy the rest of the day. We actually have a summit on European schedule a little bit later today. What time are you going to be back with us, Dan?
It's at 6 p.m. Central European time. So I guess you're 5 hours ahead, James, right now. So
that's correct. Yeah.
11 p.m. Thailand time. If anyone's still up late, join us.
Yep, 11 p.m. for the second round with Dan and the European team and the UK team. Well, thanks, Dan. We'll let you go. Get some time away from the screen. Go and get that game of squash in. We'll chat to you later.
Thanks, guys.
Well, Sethi, don't really need an introduction, but let's just have a quick look at this slide here. Of course, Sethi de Clercq going to talk about slides, beginner to intermediate use. So what we've really tried to do with this event today, a lot of people are new to G Suite, they're new to teaching online. So we've got a couple of basic sessions for newer teachers. I know a lot of you, I'm seeing a lot of people in the audience, very advanced users. I've seen them at many events. This is going to be very much a beginner to intermediate session. Sethi will talk about in a moment, but please do share this out with those teachers which are newer to using Google. There's thousands, there's probably millions of new teachers to Google over the last few months. And maybe they're on Microsoft, that's fine. Share them out this as well. There's going to be some good tips for anybody who is working online. Sethi, would you like to introduce your session a little bit more? Shall I bring your slides in?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can just pull them in. So basically, today I'm going to be looking at some top tips for when you're presenting online. I'm obviously focusing on Google Slides, but many of these tips will also be applicable to other presentation software. And as James said, there's a lot of people in the chat. Many of these will be things that you absolutely, that this is possible, how to do this, but do share this with colleagues, and maybe even share this with your students, because a lot of our students are being asked now to present their work online. And so my focus is going to be on how can we make that better.
Great. I'm looking forward to this, Sethi, because I've been working on slides a little bit this week. We'll talk about that later. I'll let you take it away. I'm just going to drop myself out of the screen.
Okay, let me just open up my slideshow. So I'm not going to present the slideshow using the present button. I'm just going to go through it because I've got a number of blank slides here open, and I'm going to show you a couple of little tricks there and maybe some different menus, and then we can look at those in depth. So here, this is the first slide, and there's a link down there, and you can use that link, and then that will bring you into the slideshow, and then you can always just make your own copy, use this with colleagues, students, share it with them. Hopefully this will help them. If you would like to add your own tips to this, by all means, you can just, repurpose these slides. It's nothing much, but it might give you some sort of scaffolding to create your own presentation and then share it with students and colleagues. So the link down below here, I will move on to the next slide, but eventually that link will become available to you in a different way, and I'll show you that in a minute. So the first tip would be all about format. So the formatting of your slides. Now, this especially for teachers new to Google Slides, teachers new to presenting online, formatting can be something that is distracting. Very often we'll see slideshows with paragraphs of text. We'll see slideshows with all the wrong colors and all the wrong type of shapes because they are just distracting. And I've seen slideshows where I focus more on the shapes in the background than on the actual text. So one thing that is very important, I think, to mention to your students as well is be aware of formatting and really understand your tools. So I said, keep it simple, but also know what is possible. And the reason I'm saying that is because there are many things that you can do in Google Slides. Not everyone knows about these, and it's about choosing the right fit for your presentation. So moving onto the next one is, the first one is text format. And as you can see, this is a very basic text box. But one thing that many people don't realize is that every text, every object, every shape, everything you have on your Google Slides has a formatting menu. Now that formatting menu, you can always find that by simply selecting your object first. So in this case, I've selected my text. Now I'm going to right click on that, and then you'll see that there is a beautiful looking new menu here. Now it's got a nice little new icon. I think they've updated that a couple weeks ago with format options. Now you can have this menu of format options when you click on text, but also when you're clicking on shapes or anything else. So I'm going to open up that menu, and this actually opens up the size. And I would highly recommend that when you are creating slideshows with a lot of text, open it up, because as you can see here, you can even add a drop shadow to your text. In some cases, that will help you to emphasize a word, or maybe bring that attention of your students to a certain title or a headline or a heading in your work. Now, again, don't overuse this because it can easily get very distracting. As you can see here, reflection, I find this one very distracting. Don't use this for text, but in some cases, when you're using this with an image or with a shape, it can make your presentation look very professional. You also have all these additional functionalities here at the top, so position, text fitting. All these things are things that you need to be aware of, because in some cases you'll be using a font, or you have a school font, and it doesn't quite fit the way you want it to fit onto your slide. Well, that will help you a lot there. Now, we also have word art. Now, the word art is very different. I've often been asked by teachers, how can I give my letters an outline without just changing the text, the font color? Well, that's where word art comes into play. So when you go to the insert menu at the top, what you'll find is that there is a word art. Now, I know this sounds strange because we're on Google Slides and we're not using Microsoft Word, but Microsoft Word was the first to introduce this. And so let's just click on word art. And now you can put any word there. So I'm just going to type AppsEvents. There we go. And then enter. You can see it's right here. And it just, by default, gives me a gray text with a black outline, and it's all gray. So what I can do now is I can change the font. So I'm going to just change the font. There we go. We can change it however we want. but we can also change that fill and that line color. And this is where your students are going to be so happy that they can finally change the color of the letters as well as the outline. So you can see I can select any of these outlines here, and it immediately changes that for me. In addition to that, you can also change the border weight. So we can, let's say we choose 3 points, and there you go. So it's just being aware of what is possible within Google Slides. And then the third one, I'm just going to delete this for now, is the diagram. Now, this is another one that I think a lot of people are sometimes forgetting about. But when you select diagram here in your insert menu, you have so many different options. You can see we have all these different diagrams. And even when we click on these, let's say that I go with the cycle, I now have additional options at the top. So I can choose, say, a 4-step. There we go. I'm going to select that. And this will then insert that onto my slideshow. And just sticking to these available templates almost will really simplify your slideshow, and it'll make it more effective for online teaching and online lessons. So this is just a quick little example of some of the things that are possible. Now, another one, and this is on to the next one, is the master slide. Now, as I said before, I have this link here, prezo.eduflip.net, and then we have the summer September. Now, I want that link to be present on every single slide. So as you can see here, it is visible on that first slide, but that second slide doesn't have it. The third slide doesn't have it. Fourth slide, it's not there. So in order for this to be applied to every single slide, you can use something called a master slide. So what I'm going to do is here, I can now go to the top, and I can either go to the view menu. So you can see here, I have master, but you can also go to slide, and then you can edit master. Now that's the exact same menu that you will be sent to. So we're going to open up our master, and this is now an overview of all the different layouts that are built into the slideshow I'm using. So I'm going to go to the master slides. It's the very first one, so it applies it to every single slide. And then here I'm going to insert a text box. So let's go ahead and click on insert, and then I'm going to insert a text box. Now I'm going to insert that text box down here on top of the blue space, and because that blue space is on every single slide, I can now have this text appear on every single slide as well. So I'm going to just change the color of that text. I'm going to make that white. There we go. And as you can see from the preview here on the left-hand side, this automatically applies this to every single slide. In other words, I only have to do the work once, and I can now push it out to every single slide in my slideshow. Great for school logos, because in some cases they do expect you to put that onto your slideshows. Great for links, as I'm showing you right here, because that way everyone sees that link on every single page or every single slide. You can use this to add maybe a date or any information that has to be readily available to your students on every single slide. Once you're happy with what you've added, you can just simply close that Edit Master menu, and then you're back to your standard slideshow. And you can see now every single slide has this link right there. This is also a great way of changing things. Let's say that you have a typo, or there was something that needs to be changed on every single slide. You have 100 slides. Don't bother going in manually. Just use the master, and that will help you a great deal. So that's all about formatting. And that brings me to the second tip. And this is a very short tip, and it's all about images. Now, we know Google Slides is incredibly, it makes it easy for us to insert images into our slideshows, because we can just go to the top, insert image, and then we can get our images from anywhere we want. We can search the web, and we can get them off of our drive. The only thing is, by all means, use an image, but don't go crazy, because less is more. And this is something that I say to my students all the time. This is an example of a slideshow. And as you can see here, farmers market, lots of images. I'm just going to click on present so you can see what that looks like. But it is an overwhelming slide. So there's a lot of images here. The information gets lost. And we've had teachers that were really excited about, oh, I get to present my slideshows on a Zoom call or in a Google Meet, but all the images are just distracting the students. So then an alternative would be just simplify it. Stick to a single image. Just keep it simple. as simple as possible. And then you can always play with those format options. Give your image a border, maybe a bit of a drop shadow, but that's it. Be very thoughtful about the colors you're using. Don't use very bright colors that can be distracting. Try to keep it as simple as possible. And then that brings me to the next tip. Now, the next tip is video. Use videos in your slideshow, but don't use your slideshow as a way to watch a 20-minute video. So be very mindful of your audience. They are there to come to join your lesson, to listen to your presentation. They're not there to get a link from you and watch a video on a different platform. So one of the biggest things you can do, I'm just going to take this link here. I've already prepared this. This is not how you would insert a video. So I'm just going to copy that link. There we go. Now, the correct way of inserting a video would be to go again to that insert box. So we're going to insert video. And the reason I've put that text there is just so I would have that URL, so I can just quickly pop that in there. So I'm going to paste the URL here. We're going to select. And we now have that video. Now, this is a very long video. It's part of a one of the previous summits, and it's a 30-minute video, so I'm not going to leave that in there as a 30-minute video. But as you can see here, there are, again, format options. So that's the same as that text box, but because it is a video, we have very video-specific options. So we can set that start time, we can set the end time, and I would really recommend that you do use this, even if it's only a 3-minute video. If you only need the first minute, then set your end time at 1 minute. It will make a huge difference for your students. It will keep them focused. And also it will show that you're not there to just feed them videos. You're there to teach a lesson, maybe use your video as a reference or as a source, but then you are mindful of which parts and which sections of that video you are showing them. Now, I've used a lot of videos during online lessons, and I tend to mute the sound altogether. So the video plays, I get to explain the reasoning behind why I'm showing them that video, but I do make sure that this box down here is ticked. That way it is muted, they don't get distracted, and I'm in full control of the start and end times. Now, if you do not see that menu, or if you've accidentally closed the menu, no worries. You can always just pull it back up by selecting the video first and then finding format options at the top. This will then open up your video options. So that is what I wanted to say about video. Now, having video is great because it allows you to start your lesson off on a positive note and with a lot of information, but you can also use Google Slides to give feedback. And that is, again, something that I think many people forget about, is that it's not just a presentation tool. You can also use this to have your students present something, maybe not live, and maybe it's a portfolio of work they've created, portfolio of some of the things they've done at home or in school, and then you can use Google Sites and Google Slides to feedback, so to give them that feedback that they need. So we're just going to go to the next slide here. Let me just, computer's a little bit slow today. There we go. So the first thing you can do is comments. Now, this is the same as in any other G Suite app. You can just right click on an object. Now, this can be any object. So maybe the feedback is you're using too many images. We'll select one of those images and then right click on the image. Maybe your feedback is about text or about something that they have typed up. Well, then you can right click on that text box. And then here you have the comment option. So you can just leave some feedback right there. So say, please check, and then just leave that as a comment. Now the comment will be down the side. And then the add comment, this is where you are actually mentioning the person. So let's say that I want to add comment here. I'm going to, again, leave that comment. But then as soon as you press add, an email address can pop up. That can be their email address, and then you can comment and assign that comment to them. That means they get notified, they get an email alert, and then that way they know that you've left a comment. I find that the most useful way of giving feedback when it comes to text. Now, the reason I'm saying when it comes to text is because on the next slide, I find video feedback even more valuable than text feedback. They love seeing their teachers, and then you can talk through what you would like them to change. Now, there is an extension or an add-on that will make it much easier for you to do this. Previously, we'd have to record a video, upload it to YouTube, change the settings, and then insert that video. Now, I've already added the link to the Chrome store here. So when you click on this, you'll see that there is a link right there, and it's record to slides. Now, record to slides is an extension that will install onto your Chrome browser, and it enables you to record a video within Google Slides. It automatically sends that video to your Google Drive, automatically changes the settings according to what you would like it to do, and then it puts it onto your slide. So I'm going to demonstrate that now. It's very easy. As you can see here, I've already done it once. So when I click on this, you'll see there's a little video. There you go. And that's it. That took me less than a minute to do. So in terms of giving feedback to your students, this is incredibly powerful. So let's just quickly go back to that previous slide. And instead of having this comment right here using text, we're going to do it with video. Now, I've already installed the extension, and you can see that it's active here at the top because it is colored. So it's no longer grayed out. And that means that I now have an additional button. So you can see that button here. I can see that there's a couple of people, anonymous people, all in this document. By all means, go and install that extension now. And then you will see that this becomes available. So you can add a video. Now, as soon as I click on that, it is going to pull up my webcam, and you can see it uses the webcam feed here. But let's say that you want to use a different webcam or a different, maybe you're using a different microphone. These three dots will give you additional options to change that. I'm going to leave it as it is, and then I can set the permissions down here. So anyone in my domain, anyone, or private. I'm going to select anyone, and then I simply click on record. So there we go. We're now recording a video. Do a little dance. And then I can just stop that by clicking it again. You can see the preview is on the right-hand side. That video is there. And as soon as I'm ready to insert this video onto my slideshow, give that feedback to my students, click on OK. In the background, it automatically uploads it to Google Drive, changes the settings, changes the sharing permissions. It pulls it into my slide. And here we now have our video. As soon as I click on play, that video will start playing. My students can watch that video. That's the feedback. Delete it once they've watched it. And if they have access to this extension, record their own responses. So this has just been such an incredible tool to use. And it integrates with Google Slides in a way that I find it's really futuristic, because it gives you that chance to use a tool they're already familiar with and then add video to that. So if you would like to try that out, the link is right here. Just click on that. That will send you to the Chrome Web Store. Don't do it now because we've got more presenters coming up. So stay here for the Summer Summit, and then you can install that immediately. And then the final tip is use the Q&A function. Now, this is a functionality of Google Slides that I've found a lot of people were unaware of. This one does work best with two screens. Now, I've only got one single screen, so you're going to see what that looks like on a single monitor, but then you could easily change it to work on a dual monitor setup. Now, this allows you to answer questions, but also highlight questions about your slideshow. So here, instead of clicking on the present button, I'm actually going to click on that drop-down menu, and I'm going to use the presenter view. Now, as soon as I click on presenter view, I get an additional window that opens up. Now, this is the one that I would then move onto a second display. Now, because I'm just demoing this, I'm going to leave it here, because what you are looking for is the audience tool. Now, as soon as you move to the audience tool, you will see that you can just start a new one. And there we go. My original slideshow now has that banner at the top. You can see the banner here. That means that any of you that now want to ask a question can go navigate to that link. I am accepting questions, so I'm going to just change that because at the moment it's set to my domain only. I'm going to accept questions from anyone. Yes, I'm going to allow anyone to ask questions, and you can now ask your questions. Now, everyone watching this, if you have a question about this presentation, if you have a question, by all means, just drop them in there. Maybe James can write a little question there, because what I'm going to show you next is how you can use that to highlight it to everyone watching your presentation, and then you can answer that question live. So as questions are coming in, you will see that they will appear down here. So the questions will appear down here, but it also gives me a little preview of what slide will be next. So that's my thank you slide. And it really helps to gauge where I'm at. I can use that previous, so I can go back to the previous one. You can see it automatically goes to the previous slide, but that banner stays up there. So anyone who wants to ask a question, they can use that link. So let's just see if anyone is asking a question at the moment or not. If not, I can always try and just do it myself. So let me just minimize this screen a little bit. There we go. Going to move that to the right-hand side. I'm going to move that to the left-hand side. So we see both at the same time. Not sure if that's what everyone will see on StreamYard. I'm hoping that everyone can see my main presenter screen still. Okay, so you should now see that I can answer those questions. Now, let me just quickly stop the main screen share and show you the audience tools, because I'm still waiting for people to ask questions. Let me just go back, make sure that we've got some questions. No, we haven't got any questions yet. So I'm just going to do a different screen share now. There we go. We're going to share a different screen. So if James, if you could pull that up, that'd be great. So here we go. This is the dual setup.
1 second.
I'm just sharing a different screen there. Yeah. So this is what I see on the second display. This is what you can see as your audience tools. So as questions are coming in on that link, now you can see that link at the top there as well. So if anyone wants to just quickly go to that link and ask a question, all those questions will appear on this screen. And then let's say that I want to answer those questions live. What I can do is I can highlight a question, and then I can push it out to my main screen. So you'll see the questions will appear here, one after another, and then it can be pushed out. So let me just quickly open up a separate tab. And let me just ask myself a question, seeing as I haven't got any questions coming in. So I should do that really really quickly here. .goo.gl/1EUDR. There we go. I'm going to ask a question, say, how are you doing? It's a bit random, but okay, let's submit that. Now, as soon as I've submitted that question, you can see it now shows up in my audience tool. And what I can do is I can click on this present button down here. And as soon as I click on that present button, this question will appear on my slideshow. So James, if you're ready for this, I'm going to share the other window again to show everyone what that looks like live. So we're going to stop this share. I'm going to do a quick share again. I'm going to open up the correct application. There we go. So that's now our main slideshow. So this is the main slideshow. You can see we still have that banner at the top. Everyone sees that. Everyone watching your presentation sees it. And as soon as I click on present, the question shows up, the person or the student that has asked it, and I can now answer it live. Now the banner does not go away. That means that people can continue to add their questions. I see them all in my audience tools. I don't have to answer them all, but I can highlight them this way. So these are the audience tools built into Google Slides. So you don't have to install anything in order to get access to this. And those are my top tips for Google Slides.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Sethi. I know a couple of people, Colleen and Aaron, were just asking about the link for the questions. I think you can see that now on the screen. Sethi, did you get any more questions? Is there any more questions come through on the slide deck?
No, I haven't seen any on the slides. I'm guessing people are probably going to be asking the questions right here on StreamYard, which is this is the right place to be. Don't go away. You could have opened the second tab, but don't do it now because we've got some amazing presentations coming up.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Sethi. Some really, really good tips there. I especially like the diagrams you were putting into the slides, because whenever I do that, people are really impressed with the diagrams, and it's a very simple thing to do. Especially with all of those sub-diagrams as well. You showed the circle one, but inside of that, there's more that opens up as well. Brilliant, brilliant tools. Well, thank you very much, Sethi.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Today, are you doing more video? Right?
Just quickly, I see some people saying they can't access it. What is possible is as you first open up the audience tools, it is automatically set to within your domain only. And so I had to manually change that to everyone. However, people that have already navigated to that link, they would have to refresh their page and then they would get access. So that's where that went wrong. Make sure that you set it to everyone before you ask your students to start using it. But then again, if you're all within the same domain, that shouldn't be an issue.
Well, completely shameless plug, Sethi. Do you have a video on the audience tools?
I do not have a video, but there is definitely a video coming, and that video is coming to the AppsEvents channel. So
we're going to do that very, very soon. Well, Sethi,
yeah.
Thank you very much. Go and enjoy the rest of your evening, Sethi, and we will chat soon.
I will do. Thank you, everyone.
Well, thank you very, very much, Sethi. We always appreciate you spending your time to be with us. As we move on, just a quick reminder, you can register at gsummit.link/Acer for to be able to win a ticket for a future bootcamp or summit. Before we move on and welcome very, very good friend Dan Pardy to the channel, just before we move on, I've got a quick message from our sponsor, Acer. So just spend 60 seconds having a quick look at this. Well, that beautiful device is Acer's Chromebook 713. And I always hear people say Chromebooks are great for students, but it's not for me. Take a look at all the new Chromebooks that are coming out, especially new Acer ones, which are enterprise level. They've got much more powerful processors and lots of RAM. I mean, honestly, they're a serious competitor to any laptop out there. So go ahead and look at those. Roberto will be Roberto will be with us in about an hour to talk about that as well. Well, now, it is my great honor to welcome Dan Pardy. Dan is based in Doha, Qatar, and he'll talk about that in a second when I bring him in. And he's going to be talking about an introduction to Google Classroom. So again, really we're focusing on all these new users that are new to Google. So this session is great for any teachers you got in your school that want to have an introduction to Google Classroom. Let me bring Dan in right now.
Hey.
Hi, Dan. How are you doing?
Hi, James. I'm doing really well, thanks. And hi to everyone at the Bangkok Summit here. And I'm here to talk about introduction to Google Classroom. We're in Doha at the moment. It's in the early afternoon, and it's about 40 degrees Celsius or about 105 degrees Fahrenheit. So luckily, I'm inside an AC. So I'm just going to share. So I'm just going to share my screen with you then, so you can see my Google Classroom setup.
So Dan, as you're doing that, so we met, I think, about 6 years ago, didn't we, in Doha at Qatar Academy?
Yes, yeah. About 6 years ago.
What were you first doing with Qatar Foundation?
So I was the theatre manager for Qatar Foundation. My background is in music and sound engineering. So I was working as a theatre manager at the Qatar Foundation schools. Prior to that, I was a senior school music teacher. I was head of music at schools in the UK. And I've always been involved in the music tech side of music, and that's kind of what got me to transition into working in education, education technology, e-learning, and with the Google Apps.
Well, I remember back then you were a godsend at the summit, because the biggest challenge we have at these big events is getting the audio set up, and nobody can do it. And it was the first time. I remember you said when we first met, "Don't worry, I've got that sorted. Everything's going to be okay." So it's brilliant to have you there. And now since then, we've run many summits together, and you've actually traveled around doing a lot of training as well. I mean, not just Google training as well. You want to talk about that?
So yeah, apart from the Google training, and I've been very fortunate to work with AppsEvents and travel across several continents now. I do training on behalf of SUNY, State University of New York. So the Buffalo campus, I teach a master's degree for them, and I've traveled to many places delivering training about the pedagogical use of technology and also education leadership.
Great. And so your role now, so just talking about that pedagogical use of technology, your role at QF is exactly, what is it now?
Yes, so I'm the district coordinator for 21st Century Learning. So I oversee e-learning and tech integration and 21st century skills across a group of 14 schools, quite diverse schools as well. So looking at schools like our academic bridge program, where students enter at about 18 years old. And so it's kind of a university bridging program, all the way down to schools that take students in from 6 months.
And approximately how many teachers do you have across all your schools?
Approximately about 1,200. So about 1,200, about 7,000 students.
You've been a very busy man, I should imagine, the last few months.
Yeah, there's been an uptick in work for me, for sure.
Well, thank you for joining us, Dan. Do you want to bring your screen in and I will share it to the stream?
Okay. So I'm going to share my Google Classroom here. Here you go.
Here we go. Bring it in now.
Excellent. Okay, everyone. So this is aimed really as an introduction to Google Classroom. So some of you might be using it already and just looking for a few tips on how to use certain features in Google Classroom. And some of you maybe haven't used Google Classroom yet and wondering if it's something that you can actually use within your own teaching and how you go about using it. So before I show you my demo classroom I set up, I'm just going to show you what happens when you go to Google Classroom. And I'm actually going to share, hopefully share with you this code. So if I actually display that code, then I'm going to want you to use this code later on. If you can record this code down now, so when you join my Google Classroom, you can just put this in to join the classroom. Don't worry if you can't get it down right now. We can come back to display this again in a moment. But if you can just jot this down or type this into a URL bar into the Omni box. Then
I'm going to save this on a banner as well, so I can display this later over the screen when you need it.
Excellent, thank you. Okay. And I'm going to show you what happens when you go to Google Classroom. Now you can get to Google Classroom in many different ways. You can use this URL straight into the Omni box, which is classroom.google.com. It follows that familiar pattern that Google has with many of its apps, having the apps name .google.com. Okay. You can also get to Google Classroom from the app launcher. So when you're on the Google homepage, the app launcher or the waffle, I can click on this and I can go to Google Classroom in this way as well. And my Mac lets me click on it. Okay, apparently I'm not allowed to click this at the moment. There we go. Bit of lag. So when you get into Google Classroom, you see, if you've never used it before, you won't see any of these tiles here. It will just be a blank page. But if you've already created classrooms, you're going to have a tile for each classroom you've created. So each one of these tiles here, these squares, represents a separate virtual classroom. Then to create or to join a class, you go to this plus in the top right-hand corner. Okay. Again, very common across the Google platform. The plus indicates that you're creating something new. So I click plus, and I can join a class. If I click this, it will ask me to put in that class code that I showed you earlier. Excuse me. My phone's on silent and do not disturb, and yet still somehow phone calls come through. If I click the plus there and click create class, it's going to launch another pop-up box where I can populate this with information about the class. So I can give the class a name. So this could be my demo class, or it could be the name of your physical classroom, such as Year 7 English or English 7A or whatever format you may use. The section, so whether that's elementary, middle, or high school, or this can be used for anything to denote anything that you want about the class in some ways. The subject that you teach, and the room. Okay, so this would be your physical room number if this is connected with a physical classroom. So if I go back into my demo class setup for this training here, we're going to be presented with 4 different tabs. We have the Stream tab, which we're currently on, the Classwork tab, the People tab, and the Grades tab. Sometimes you may see grades displayed as marks instead. It depends on your Google domain. In this banner at the top, this is completely customizable. I can upload a photo, as I have done here, to display the Google Classroom image, or I can select from a Google theme. So I can create a theme which could be related to the topic of the classroom. But you can also upload your own photo, as I did there with the Google Classroom before. You have the class code, and if you're dealing with students who are secondary and above, it's quite easy just to display this. Displayed very big, so people can then join the classroom very easily. So again, if you want to use this now to go and join the classroom, feel free, so you can see the student view. A new feature recently released by Google is an invite link. So when you're dealing with students that perhaps are struggling to get hold of the code, you can actually just directly invite them. So they click on the link and they're straight into the classroom, no issues. Also in the banner, and something I'm going to touch upon a little later, is about generating a Meet link. So this can then tie your classroom to the Google Meet environment, so you can have those virtual online lessons. Okay, that's been especially useful in the last couple of months. Okay. Aside from that, this stream here is almost like a Facebook wall. It's where you share posts, announcements, bits of information, maybe resources with your students. You can also enable students to be able to post as well, or to comment, or you can completely lock it down so students can't post here. Depending on the age of the students, the maturity of the students, and whether you face any low-level behavior issues, you can lock this down as much as you need for your situation. So if I click on the share with the class, I'm just going to demonstrate that again. There's a tile here that says share something with your class. I click on that. I can start typing. This is my demo post. So this could be that you're sharing lesson objectives at the start of a lesson with students. It could be resources for the lesson. So if I want to attach a resource now, I click on the add. I can either attach something straight from my Google Drive. I can embed a link to a web page, or perhaps even to a Google Drive folder containing many resources. Especially useful there if you've got all of your planning organized by folders and subfolders, and you just want to attach a folder of resources for lesson 1, lesson 2, etc. I can upload something directly from my computer. So this could be for PDFs, images, etc. And lastly, I can embed a YouTube video as well. So let's just go, for instance, with this. I'm going to attach something from my Google Drive. And I'm just going to choose, as an example, this. Okay. I can now post it immediately to the classroom, or I can choose to schedule it for later. So if you're doing your planning at the weekend or in an evening for your classes, you can schedule those posts to maybe go out 5 minutes before the start of the lesson. Or I can save as a draft. If I hit save as a draft, you'll see a saved announcement drop down at the top of the stream. When I reveal that, I can go back into that and post it whenever I choose. The great thing about saving as a draft is if you've got many things that you want to share with your students throughout a lesson, rather than trying to work out when you should schedule them, you can just save them as a draft and drop them into the stream as is organic and natural for the flow of your class on that particular day. So that's the stream really covered. It's a place for you to share announcements, information, and resources with your students. If you've enabled students to be able to comment, you can actually facilitate a discussion here within each post by having students comment on the post directly. The next tab is classwork, and this is where you would have your main resources for summative work, for formative tasks, for summative tasks as well. So when I click on create, coming back to the idea that the plus button here is about creating something new, I can create an assignment. I can create a quiz assignment, which is a Google form type quiz that's linked directly into the classroom. I can create a question. I can create a material. I can reuse posts, and I can create topics. I really advocate for the use of topics because as you post lots and lots of resources, it can be quite confusing to students, especially if you're using the classroom for the entire academic year. I'm just going to demonstrate now how you can create an assignment. Click on assignment, I get a pop-up here. Obviously, the assignment needs a title. I try to use, especially for summative work, I try to use numbers. So it makes it very easy for you to identify what you're working within. So I might have assignment number 1. Again, I use the pound symbol or the hash symbol here to as a unique identifier for when I go into my Google Drive and I'm dealing with things and searching for documents. I can use that, knowing that I use that within my assignments. It's a great way to filter out assignment documents from non-assignment documents. So I put assignment 1 and the title of the assignment, whatever that may be in this example. Apparently I can't type today. You can add instructions. Again, something I advocate for, give instructions unless it's very obvious from the assignment title, or you have an attached document with instructions. You can then add from a Google Drive the link, the file, and YouTube, as you could with the announcements in the stream. We're going to come back to this in a moment. When you add in a Google Drive document, it gives you further options we're going to come back to. One thing I didn't show you in the announcements, but it's very useful in the assignments, and it is available in announcements as well, is when you post, you can actually choose if you want to post to more than one classroom at a time. So if you teach 4 or 5 sections of grade 7 English, they may have the same assignments. So if these were same classes with the same content and the same assignments, you could tick these and post to all of those classes at the same time, making life easier, making the very procedural task of posting the work for the students more automated. If you only select one class to post to, you can actually differentiate your assignments and work if you wish. By posting to just one class, I can actually choose whether I want to post to all students or just one student. So I've only got James here within my classroom. But if I have multiple students here, I could actually choose which students were to receive this assignment. So I could actually have the differentiated assignments as to the level of the students. I can assign a points value to the assignment as well. It defaults to 100, but let's say if you teach in the IB where the criterion are marked out of 8, you could have multiples of 8. So I could have, if I'm marking one criteria or one criterion, I would have 8. If it was 2, I'd have 16, etc. You can also make it ungraded. You can set a due date. So I can set, for instance, the next week. And I can also set a time as well. So if I want a particular time on that date, let's say 3 p.m., then I can set that as well. As soon as it hits that time and a student submits the assignment afterwards, the classroom will mark it in your gradebook as being handed in late. You can create a topic. So you can actually create topics within the classwork page, or as you set the assignments and quizzes within the classwork page. So I might want to call this summative assignments. You could also call it Unit 1, Unit 2, etc., or whatever your units are labeled as. A new feature, or relatively new feature now, is you can also attach a rubric. There used to be an extension called Gubrick, which allowed you to do similar functionality. But now Google have actually included rubrics within the assignment page. Lastly, there's a box to check for plagiarism. Now, if you check this and you have originality reports enabled on your domain, it checks not just the body of work on the internet to see if the student is plagiarized from other sources on the internet, but it also checks across the body of work in your own domain, so between other students. So it's a great way. It's like kind of like Turnitin, but it's embedded within Google Classroom. Now, as I said, I was going to show you what happens here when we attach a Google Doc, because it does different things to all of the other attachments. So I'm just going to actually create a new doc. Okay. The same would happen if I attach it as well. And I'm going to give it the same name. So it's just assignment 1. Now, when I come back to this page, I have an extra drop-down box. This does not happen for all of the other options. So YouTube video, files like PDFs and computer-based files, links to websites, etc., only on Google Apps documents. So like Sheets, Slides, Google Docs. It will default to students can view the file. So that means all students can view the very same file. Okay, so that's one file shared with all students to view. If I change it to students can edit file, that means there's one file for all students to edit. So it would be more like a collaborative assignment. They'd be working on the same doc together where they can edit. And last one, and for me, this is one of the most useful functions within Google Classroom, is to make a copy for each student. So my assignment 1 document here would be duplicated for as many students as I have in the class. So if I had 20 students in the class, we would then have 20 copies of this. Each unique copy for each student would be appended with their name. So in the example of this class, we have James. So James's copy would say James Sayer -assignment number 1. He can then edit that assignment and that Google Doc completely independently of all of his peers. So basically, you can create essay templates, instructions for various tasks. You could have students complete work like missing words, tasks, etc., and they can all edit their own document completely independently of each other and submit it, and it has their name built into the file. Because how many times have you asked them to copy a file and put their name in the file, and they don't do it and they submit it, and you don't know whose work it is all the time, depending on how it's been submitted. Okay. So what I do now, before I assign it, again, I've got the same options. I can schedule it and I can save the draft for assigning later. So instead of post, it says assign, because you're actually assigning it. It's very, very slightly different to creating an announcement. And I've now posted that to the stream. So you can see that is there within the classwork page under the topic of summative assignments that I gave it. The topic also comes into the left-hand panel here. And if you've got hundreds and hundreds of topics, you can actually filter these out by just clicking on them as so. When I go back to the stream now, you'll also see that the assignment has been posted into the stream, so students can navigate to it from there. If I go back into the assignment, you'll see that I get told by Google Classroom that no one has turned in the work yet, and there's one outstanding piece of work. Okay, I can see here James within my classroom, and I'd have a row here for each and every student that was admitted into the classroom. If I click on James's tile there, it will open this up into the grading view of Google Classroom. We can see that, that James has actually entered some text here. Here is my work. And I could use this menu if I had more people within the classroom. I can use this menu to switch between the various students. Or I can toggle back and forth, previous student, next student here, and I would see each student's piece of work for this assignment, only for assignment number 1. If it was graded, I could enter a grade for James here. There would be a box just for the grade, and I can enter private comments. Hopefully your feedback will be better than great work, but as we push for time, I'm just going to post that. And then I can choose to return that. James hasn't submitted it. He's entered work, but he hasn't submitted it. But this would be blue, and I could hit return, and James would be informed then of if it was graded, what the grade was, and would be informed of the feedback given. So this is a great way to work paperless within your classrooms. Rather than taking mountains of paper back home to grade in your spare time, you can literally, whenever you have an internet connection, pop open your laptop, and you can see students' work at a click of a button. Quiz assignments work very similarly, okay, but they are based in forms, and really they're outside the scope of this introduction session. Okay, so they're kind of multiple question quizzes or checkbox quizzes from Google Forms that you can automatically grade. I really like questions. I like setting questions. So it's kind of like a mini assignment where the student can either respond in a multiple choice function or a very short answer. Again, you can give it a points. You can make it ungraded. I can give just 1 or 2 points, etc. I can set it to the different students in the classroom. I can mark a due date and due time, and I can set the topic. But a couple of extra functions that you don't have in the assignment is I can allow students to reply to each other, and I can allow students to edit their answer. What I like about the ability to let them reply to each other is I can actually have a more debatable question that wouldn't be graded, where there's possibly not a right or wrong answer, and actually set this as a bell ringer activity for students where they can give their opinion, and then they can start to have a discussion around these various opinions around this debatable question. Okay, so it's a great way to do this. So materials within the classwork page would be if you wanted to post something like a syllabus, a class calendar through Google Sheets. Okay, so something that isn't a task to do. Okay, something that's used by the students more. Maybe materials that will be used throughout multiple sessions, so students don't need to scroll through the stream looking for them. You know, if there's a 6-week-long project, you might post those materials in here. Reusing a post does what it says on the tin. It's just literally to reuse a post from another class. So I can select another class that I might have posted in, and then I can pull up the classwork from there and post it within this class. And lastly, creating a topic. It again does what it says on the tin, just gives it a topic name. That is it. So I might call this new topic. And you'll see it in the left-hand panel, and I can filter out things that are in the different topics. In the People tab, you can just see who's in the classroom. You can add co-teachers in, and you can directly add students. Bear in mind that if you directly add students, they'll receive an email where they have to accept being enrolled into the classroom. Okay. So I prefer to use the invite link or using the class code with older students. Lastly, the grades tab here, you will see various columns for your different assignments and various rows for your different students, much like if you were just grading within a spreadsheet. The great thing about this is that you can weight assignments and you can calculate overall grades, their overall GPA, as students progress throughout the year in this. So really brief, that was a real brief covering of Google Classroom. The one thing I didn't really get to was the Meet link. So just to very quickly show you this. When you hit Generate Meet Link, it creates a unique URL for your class to meet on Google Meet. So I can copy that. Okay, I can turn it off, on or off for students. Okay. But the important thing to remember is if you don't want students to use that link later on, you can disable that within the class settings. So if you ever see the gear cog, okay, this is the class settings. Okay, and I can go down to Meet and I can reset this and change it. And I can turn it off. And there we go. That's a very, very brief overview of Google Classroom.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dan. That was an excellent walkthrough. A quick question from Sagun that maybe we can address. Sagun was asking if you've got any recommendations for annotation tools for checking assignments. What I think what Sagun's getting at is if a student submits an image or possibly a PDF, but specifically he's talking about images, how can you annotate those images when you're grading them? Because there's a couple of different options depending on what device you're on.
Yeah, the Google Classroom app for iOS and Android, I believe, has annotation tools built in natively. So you can annotate PDFs and images. Yeah,
it does. It absolutely does. So you can annotate natively within the Classroom application. And what I saw recently, I just noticed this. If you have Kami is a PDF annotation tool. Yeah. Kami is now actually integrated with Classroom. So you can, if you have Kami connected to your Classroom, when you're in the grading screen, you can click on the Kami icon, and then you can go ahead and annotate using the Kami interface on the work as well. I haven't tried that on every type of tablet or laptop, but I do know it works on Windows. It works on a browser in that environment. Yeah. So I hope that helps you out a little bit. Yeah, it works. Yeah, Sagun's just asking, does it work in Chrome? It works on the desktop version of Chrome. So try out Kami, and I know that the Android tablet and iOS versions of the Classroom app let you annotate as well.
Yeah, and another app to be aware of, it's not so much with Google Classroom, but when coming to grade in or provide feedback in Google Docs, is Kaizena, and the ability to give audio feedback using Kaizena. That's something I really enjoyed when giving feedback to students, because written feedback seems so cold sometimes. That auditory feedback is very useful for students, especially young students.
I think across the board, Dan, that's a really, really good point. Yeah, audio feedback. It's easier for teachers as well. Sometimes you might be sitting on the sofa grading your work. Kaizena, quick audio comment. Absolutely, I love it. Well, Dan, thank you very much for giving up your time this evening, for joining us for the summit. Some really, really useful tips there. And what's great is it's going to be on YouTube. So this is, if you're watching this now and thinking, okay, I've got all of this, share it with the teachers at your school. Very, very useful tips there. Thank you, Dan. Great. What have you got going on this month, Dan? So nearly, I think you have a break coming up in October.
Yes, October 18th, we have a break. Hopefully I'll get a break. we'll see. But yes, our school's on break. We've got a busy few weeks ahead. We've got the Teaching and Learning Forum coming up just before the break. Lots of Google PD in our district as well going on right now. So really, so AppsEvents coming in to support us with getting our teachers upskilled with the Google Certified Educator boot camps. So we're quite excited about that.
Actually, you've just provided me the perfect segue here. I think, Dan, didn't you submit a piece of work yourself last week, in the last couple of weeks? You've been working on something the last few months. What is that? I'm talking about ISTE, of course.
Oh, yeah, yes. Yes, been working on the ISTE Certified Educator Trainer. I don't know what to call it, pathway, accreditation. It's been a really exciting time. It's such a shame that's kind of that COVID hit when it hit. If it hit a few months earlier, or a few months later, it might have been more convenient.
That's right. So we met up in London a few months ago, actually back in March.
Yes.
We were in the very last live ISTE training in London. And in fact, AE Learning Lab is a sister company of AppsEvents, and we're going to be rolling out ISTE certifications for teachers across Europe and the Middle East. And we're very, very excited about that. We're going to be rolling these out online initially. Dan has have you received your portfolio back for the educator one, Dan?
Not yet, no.
So you're in that process, and it is quite an engaging process. I think it takes
it's very thorough. They cover all aspects. There's a lot of self-reflection in there, which is I really like. I believe that educators are aware of what to do. They just need to be unpicked and have it pulled out of them as to how to use these tools and strategies effectively. What I really like about ISTE, though, is the focus on pedagogy and the focus on the learning, and using the technology as an enabler. So it's just a means to an end. It's not about learning technology, and I really like that.
Brilliant. Well, we're very excited to roll these out and hopefully welcome you, Dan, one day as a trainer as well. If we can get you out there, it'll be absolutely brilliant. Once again, Dan, thank you very much for joining us. We'll catch up later.
Take care.
Well, thank you, Dan. Once again, Dan goes, and we've got another exciting speaker joining us right now. You're probably familiar with Nathan Gildart, or Nate, as his friends know him already. He's joined us in the summits previously over the summer. And really, Nate is probably the biggest well-known expert I know with Google Earth and Google Geo tools. So it's really, really excited to welcome him to the summit. Let me bring Nate in right now. Hi, Nate. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I hear you well. How you doing?
And welcome, Nate. I'm doing very good. How are you doing, sir?
Good. Yeah, thanks again for having me.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant to have you here, Nate. So, Nate, just a quick thing. What are you going to be talking about today?
So last November, Google rolled out a new tool within Google Earth. And I was fortunate enough to be on a team of probably about 70 people around the world that were playing with this tool, giving user feedback for about 2 years. So it's called the Google Earth Projects tool. I absolutely love it. Slowly indoctrinating faculty at my school to use it. So I'm going to share that today. And this is going to be interactive so that hopefully participants and people watching are going to be building along.
Brilliant. So as Nate is talking about this, I'm going to drop a link to copy a document into the chat so people can easily copy it. So depending on what device you're on, I will drop it into the comment section as you're talking.
Okay, wonderful. So I guess I'll just start and kind of share my screen right now, if that's all right, and we'll roll right into it. Okay, how are we looking there?
There we go.
Okay, I do not intend to go through a slide deck, so I'm not going to kind of go through this. I'm going to keep it there just to point a few things out to you. You will get a copy of this slide deck afterwards. And I live in Japan, by the way, originally from Canada, but happily stuck here. You can reach me. You see my name at Nathan Gildart, and then a couple of other places to find me. As I go through this, I guess workshop or hands-on workshop, if you will, I will point out a few things. So you can go through and talk about digital story or read about digital storytelling and a few tips that I have, as well as some examples in particular on this slide here, slide number 12. You can go back and check those out later, because I want to make this hands-on for people to fully enjoy. Now, if you click on the link that James put in the comments, you're going to see this, right? It's a Google Doc. So I would like you to click Make a Copy, please, right? That little blue button right there. And what you're going to see is this document. And we'll get into the document in a moment. I'll tell you what we're going to do with it. But we've got text and resources for the cover slide. Then we've got 1, 2, 3 different places that we're going to add to our Google Earth project tour. And then after that, we're going to add a Google Forms quiz and embed a third-party tool. Now, I hope to get through this in about 20 or so minutes. But anyway, we'll take our time so people don't get confused. There is a tutorial video in the slide deck. So if you think, oh, it's going a little bit too quickly here, don't worry, you'll be just fine. Now, of course, we want to start with what is the Google Earth Projects tool, right? So I want to show you what this tool can actually do. So it's number one, very user-friendly. It's easy for students to use. I personally feel that upper elementary students will be able to use it. Middle school and high school, without a doubt, they'll use it very quickly and simply. And what's nice about this, you're going to notice that I'm using Google Forms, Google Docs, Google Earth, as well as another browse-based tool called Answer Garden, all in the cloud. So if you're on a Chromebook, it really doesn't matter what device you're using to build it. You do need a browser-based device to make this, but you can view it on any kind of device, smartphone, tablet, iPad, whatever. But if you're on Chromebooks or another device, you're good to go. So Google Earth's projects basically allows you to create a tour, right? And so as an example, and I'm going to give you some tips as we kind of go through this, okay? So this is what we refer to as a cover slide here, right? And then here we've got our table of contents, and there's 2 ways you can do this. So let's say, for example, you're doing a jigsaw. You have built the project tool, and you want students to teach each other. So you might assign Pompeii to one student, the Rosetta Stone in Memphis to another, et cetera, et cetera. And then the students come together and they teach each other about each place. I mean, ideally, the students will do their research and create their own tour and talk about it as they present to the class. But one way you can to do this is to create a Google Earth project and then do a jigsaw activity. Or you can just assign it and students go through on their own. So if it was jigsaw, they would just go to the table of contents and find their place of study. But if they're working on their own, what they could also do is just go from one place to another. So you're at your title slide, and what you get is this really cool earth moving, and it takes you right down to the place. Now, you could have the view where you're looking like on the bird's eye view, or it takes you right down to the street view, which I absolutely love. So this is Google Street View that you're looking at here, and you can actually choose, if it's on Street View, you can actually choose where it's going to go. And note here that I've got a nice knowledge card here. It's not called a text box, it's called a knowledge card, right? And here I've got images that I've chosen. I've copied the link and I've put them in. And if you want, you can scroll through and put quite a lot of images in here as well. Now, it's something else that I would like to notice. I'm going to go to another tour here just to kind of point out. If we go here and look at ancient brain surgery, everybody, isn't that cool? If we go here, so we've got our image right here, but you notice I can embed a YouTube video as well. So when I click on it, there's that extended learning, right? And so this video is 4.5 minutes long, probably a little bit long. I would suggest you would embed a video that's shorter, but even better, if students are making their own project, get them to make the video and then embed themselves after they upload it to YouTube. All right, so I'm going to pull out of that, and I'm going to come right back to this here. So I want you to notice how the icons look a little bit different on the left. Now, when you have the square here, it means it's like one slide kind of thing. It's good for introductions or extended learning. And then where you see the pins, well, that identifies as a place that people will actually go. And sometimes embedding with Google Forms is a little wanky. It was when I built this tour. So what I've done is actually just put in a little slide and a link to a Google form, and we'll kind of show how this is all done. Now, something that I do want to point out, and I'm going to go right back to my title slide here again, is that you notice that I've got a nice color contrast here. I've got this brilliant image of Tutankhamun. The image credit is here. This is another point that I want to make. When you or your students are creating these, always put credit where it's deserved, right? So have those Creative Commons attributions, or if it's public domain, at least where you got it from, like Smithsonian or National Geographic. But note here that we've got the nice white color. You don't have a lot of option with the color in these different knowledge cards. So keep in mind that your image really does have to contrast well with color. And of course, image credit, right? Give the attribution. And I'm deliberately going to show you this. This is one that actually got featured on Google Earth, but you notice that I should have used a different image in the background. It just doesn't contrast very well. I don't know why I stayed with it. Probably had trouble finding something that I really, really liked. But anyway, this is essentially what you can do with Google Earth. So let me just go back to this project. Let's bounce from one place to another. And then I'll do it again. All right, so now we're going from brain surgery in ancient England now to false teeth, and we've got in Italy, and we've got the bird's eye view, and then we're going to go to the next place. So we're going to pull out of India, and then we're going to go and see what the ancient Indians did with plastic surgery, kind of zoom halfway around the world. Now, for some reason that stopped. I don't know what's going on with that. I'll have to check that out. But what we're going to do now is actually build this together. Okay, so I would like you to go back to this doc, and if you have a Chrome extension where you can split your screen, that would be ideal. If you don't have a Chrome extension to split your screen, and your whatever device you're on, just split it whatever way you do. On a Mac, for example, I'd pull that over here and then make the slides that I want to look at here a little bit smaller, kind of pull this over. Now, I'm not going to do that, but it'll be a little easier for you if you split the screen. We're under limited time here. If you want to just follow along, that's totally cool. So another tip, I recommend you get all your research done, get your links put into a Google Doc, and simply because if you want to make a Google My Map later on or something like that, you've already got your research. You can make a Google project, and you can make a Google My Map, or use it in some other slides presentation or something. And then it also makes it easier for you to create your project. So how do we get to Google Earth? For those who might be new, one thing you can actually do is go to your Omnibox up here and just type earth.google.com. And if you enter that, you're going to come to the Google Earth landing page. And in the top right here, you're going to see a blue button that says Launch Earth. Now, you're probably not going to do that. So earth.google.com, or what you'll most likely do is be in Gmail or your school account, and you're going to go up to your apps launcher, which is the little waffle up here. A lot of people tend to call it the waffle, I find. Click on that, and you're probably going to have to scroll down a bit. Now, Google Earth is now part of the Google for Education suite, so you should have automatic access to it. If you do not, please speak to your apps administrator, and they'll sort you out. You click on that, and then you're going to get a black Earth, Google Earth kind of thing, and it's going to take a moment for it to load. So I don't want to waste our time here doing that, but go ahead and do it yourself and just kind of go along with me. But for now, just look over here. When you've launched Google Earth, you're going to get this interface, okay? And if you look over here on the left, let me zoom into that. This icon did not exist last November, right? So you're going to tap on that, and then you're going to choose New Project. Now, this is where you're going to see other projects that you've had. This is where you'll go in to edit those projects. However, when you create a Google Earth project, you will automatically have a folder in Google Drive made for you, and they will all save in there. So you can go in there, tap on those, and open it from there. Now, it takes a moment, so I'm not going to do that right now. But what I'm going to do is create a new project. Let me take a breath for a minute here, because I know I'm going kind of quickly. It's actually quite fast from here, to be honest with you, because we have all our text and our images and links. So again, you're going to click New Project, blue button at the top, and you're going to create a project in Google Drive. Now, again, you could click here and then open a project and edit, but I'm going to click Create. Now, like any other Google tool, you can, if you look at your sharing icon there, you can click on that, and that's where you can invite people to work on the same project. Totally cool, right? Great for kids. And you have your ellipse as well, and this is where you could export all the information into a KML file and then recreate it somewhere else. So what we want to do, though, is first give it a title. So I'm going to go back to my Google Doc, and I'm calling this something we are all familiar with, World Heritage Sites. And I'm going to go, and I'm just going to tap in, and I'm going to paste it in there. And then I'm going to go back to my description. And believe it or not, I actually don't need the description in here. People will not, let me edit that again. People are actually not going to see this, but I always put the description in so I remember exactly what the focus is. They're not going to see anything but the very first feature, okay? So the next thing you're going to do is go to this blue button right here that says New Feature. You're going to tap on that, and you have different options. You can automatically add a place that people automatically go to. You can add a place mark that you already know. So if you tap that, then you can choose a place on the interface that you're looking at, or you can draw lines and shapes on a place that's already on the map. What I recommend is you start a full screen slide. That way you can set the stage and give a little context. So I'm going to click full screen slide. And what I want to do is take that text that I had before, and I'm going to paste it right there. Now that went bold, so I'm going to unbold that. And I'm going to go back to my document. Okay, let me just slide that right there. I'm going to get my title again. And I'm going to go back here, because this is actually my title slide. This is the first thing everybody sees, so this is what I want them to see. So I'll have my title, I have my text, and if I want, what I could do is actually choose a colored background and then click on View Presentation to see how it looks. And so there I have a really nice, clean-looking background with my title. But I want to be a little more avant-garde, so to speak. So I'm going to go back to my document here. And I've already linked my image from the Smithsonian of Moai, Easter Island. I'm going to tap that, and I'm just going to go click Copy Link, right? So I'm going to tap the link icon. I'm going to go in, and right here where I've got my photo, this is exactly where you're going to add YouTube videos, photos. And of course, you have the different options like in other Google tools. In this case, I'm not going to do a Google search. I'm not going to search on YouTube or Drive. I'm just going to paste the photo URL because I already chose. When you search in Google Tools, I find that the image search is somewhat limited. So I do my own using Wikimedia Commons and in Google search. So I've tapped that. And so there I've got my image. And I'm going to go down. There's nothing else that I want to change here. These manual settings you probably won't use. So I'm going to view the presentation, see how that looks. So I think that looks pretty good, right? I mean, I've got my image, I've got my World Heritage Sites. The contrast is pretty good, but I forgot my citation. So I'm going to go back to my text box, and I'm going to copy all of this right here. I'm going to go back in, and I'm just going to add it right under there. And I've already got my link in there. If I want just to double check, I just go to Preview, Presentation, and I mouse over, and there I go, and I have my link. Now, it is bolded, so I might want to fix that up a little bit because I'm anal retentive. But that's a pretty good-looking landing slide. World Heritage Sites, a collaborative journey. So if we were working on all this together, you would have your own, your own places that you put in there. So now we want to go to add our first place. So we're going to go to the Bantu civilization. It thrived in Zimbabwe. Now, I always put the place underneath. Now, in this sample, what I've done deliberately is chosen a place in South America, a place in Asia, and a place in Africa. This is one of the little tips and lessons. When we create a project, if we're looking at the whole world, we're looking at World Heritage, right? If I had more time or we had more time, what I do is put places in North America, places in Europe, and that kind of thing. We want to represent the world holistically, right? We don't want to exclude people. So I've chosen Great Zimbabwe. So I'm going to go in here. Now, remember, this is my title slide. So I want to add a new place, right? So I'm going to go right up here to my arrow. And I realize I'm going kind of quick here, folks, but trying to be cognizant of time. So what I want to do is go back to New Feature. And I'm going to search for a place to add. I'm not going to go try to eyeball it here. I'm going to search for a place to add because I want to be specific. And I'm just going to paste in the place, and there it comes up right there. So I'm going to tap on that, and you're going to see it kind of zoom. Okay. And so if I want, let's see, I could tap on that, and let me go back here. There you go. And now I've got my knowledge card right here. So what I want to do is click this button, Add to Project. So I'm going to tap on that, and then I get this pop-up box. Now, I like this title. I think that's good, but I'm not going to save it. Why am I not going to save it? Because I don't want it to look like this, and I don't want the text that they've put in. I want the text that I researched. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to choose Edit Place. So I'm going to tap on that. And so now I've got the option to kind of make this my own, so to speak, right? So I'm going to click Replace. So tap on that. And so now I get exactly what I had, almost exactly what I had before. So now I can go back. I've got the title that I want, Great Zimbabwe National Monument. And I'm going to go, and I'm going to I'm not going to put my YouTube in there because we don't have to do that when we're using YouTube. I'm not putting the YouTube attribution. So I'm going to copy all of that text, and I'm going to paste it right here. In fact, I'm going to go up, and I'm going to choose the title that I originally wrote. The Bantu civilization thrived in Zimbabwe. So I'm going to paste that in there. And so I'm going to look at my text. It looks pretty good. I've got my Creative Commons license because I literally did copy this from the World Heritage Organization, UNESCO. I've got my image attribution. I got my stuff there. Now, one thing you might want to change is this here. If you get that small info box, you'll get that little white box. Some people prefer that because they want more space to look at. But what I'm going to do is choose a large info box. Okay? And I'm going to view the presentation. So let me tap on that. And so to me, that looks pretty good. I'd probably add more text, but I've got my link, I've got my image attribution, I've got my research. Now, instead of going in and just adding a whole bunch of stuff, because I'm recognizing that we're running out of time here, I'm going to go back and I want to show you something that you can do. Now, to me, this bird's eye view is pretty cool, but I think what I want to do is go right down into the street view. So what I'm going to do is grab Pegman right here. That's what Pegman's called. I can't zoom in when we have it there. Let me zoom that way. There we go. Yeah, it's Google Earth, so we can't zoom on Pegman. So I'm going to click and drag Pegman. I'm going to drag him over. And it looks like this, wherever there's blue, that means there's a street view that you can look at. Okay? So I think I'm going to go to right here, the National Monument. So I'm going to tap on that and just going to wait. No, it's not letting me go. So oh, there it is. Great. Patience is a virtue, everybody. So I've just dragged back here. Let me just put Pegman back in there. So now it's taking me down into this view right here. So I'm going to wait and see. Oh, doesn't that look cool? Of all the places I really want to go in the world, right? Okay, let's scroll around, see how that looks. I think the more engaging view when somebody lands is actually right here. You can see that it's a place people lived or there was human activity. So what I'm going to do now is click Capture This View. So I'm going to tap on that, and you notice it says the view is saved. So that means when people come down, when they click on this place on the project or on the journey, it's going to take them right down into here. Now, I also want to add a little bit more stuff here, right? I want to add photos. So I'm going to go back to my text. I'm going to click on the image link that I put in there. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go back in. I'm going to tap, and I'm going to go to URL again. But remember, you can do a Google search. And I'm going to put that in there. So I've got this. Let me just I got my large info box. Now I want to put some YouTube in there. I want a little bit of extra learning going on, right? So I've already linked my YouTube video. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to copy the link, go back to my wonderful little project, click on the camera icon, and you can get, I think, up to like 20. Now, what I want to do, though, I don't want to post the URL. I want to go to YouTube and then post the URL in there and search. And boom, there it is. This is a great TED Ed lesson on Great Zimbabwe, if you're curious. Okay, so now I want to view the presentation and see how things kind of look. I've got my Street View, I've got my text and all my attributions. I don't really want to change the pin. If you wanted to, you could change the pin color. Maybe make it a little bit, I don't know, bright blue, for example. And I'm going to click View Presentation. And so now I can see that my video's linked. I've got my text in there. I might want to put a little space after this text here. It's kind of hard to read. So all you have to do is just hit Enter and go down one space. So let me go back here to the photosphere. And let's see. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Let me go back. And I want to click on Present. And I want to present right from the beginning. So here's our first page. Let's click on this. And because we've already been here, it's taking us directly here. Normally what it'll do is look at the Earth and then it'll spin and take you down. But we've already been there before, so it's defaulting. So there's one other thing that I'd kind of like to show you, maybe two things. I think I got a few more minutes here, if that's all right, James. Under New Feature, there's something else that you can do. You can draw a line or a shape if you want to focus people on something. So I've gone to New Feature and chosen Draw Line or Shape. And I'm going to tap here, tap here, tap here, here. Just going to kind of tap around. This is great if you are looking at places that have similarities. So let me just put Zimbabwe there. I'm going to click, I'm not going to edit the place. I'm going to click Save in a moment. But for example, you've got cities that have similar features. Like my hometown has a citadel that looks the same as a citadel in Germany and a citadel in Japan. So they're all sister cities. So this would be kind of a cool way to say, hey, what does this look like in some other place in the world? So now that I've clicked on Great Zimbabwe, I'm going to have that image. Oh, notice how that's taken us down now? Isn't that kind of cool? Okay, so let me go back to the first thing here, and okay, just going to wait for that to load. Let me actually go back to edit here. And I'm going to click presentation. I'm going to show you one more thing, and then we'll be done. So I go to my first thing. We've already looked at that. It's defaulted to the Street View, and note that you can scroll around in there, which is pretty cool. And then we go to our next one, and now I have my polygon here. And if I did add information, if I tap on it, there would be a pop-up that gives more information on it. But I didn't put anything in there, so we're not looking at it. Now, there's one last thing I want to show you, which I think is kind of cool. So let me just go back here. I'm going to add one more feature. Let's see. I'm just going to go Peru, just for the sake of argument here. So it's going to zoom out. I'm going to click Add to Project just to save us some time here. I'm going to click Edit Place. Okay, and I'm going to click Replace. And let's assume we went through the same process, adding photos, videos, and our text and all that. Here it's got no info box, but what I want to do is go to this third-party app, right? Answer Garden. And I've made one here, so I'm going to embed this in my tour. So I'm going to go right up here. Now, there is a little bit of coding that you kind of have to understand. If you look at my lips here, I tap on that and I switch to HTML. It's really not that difficult. You don't have to know how to code. All you have to do is know how to copy the embed code and paste it in the body. Now, the next thing you might want to do is change the height and the width. So I'm going to put that up to about 1,000. That might be a little too much. The height I'm going to put to about maybe 600. We'll see how that looks. And I'm going to click View Presentation. I want to see how that looks. And so now what you get is this answer garden that I've created. So let me just, where do I want to go? Taj Mahal. I'm going to enter that. Okay, and Taj Mahal will pop up if I refresh it. And if I refresh here, oh, made a mistake here. Let me go back to my table of contents. I'm going to go back to Peru. Let me go back to Peru. And so I get my answer garden. And anyway, it's going a little bit slow here, slave to Wi-Fi, but you could actually have your students interact with you with third-party sites. I found Padlet doesn't work so well. Sometimes Google Forms is a little bit clunky. And just to remind you, if you do want a Google form just to quiz students at the end, all you really have to do is create one of these, kind of panel slides or title slides, and just add text and link the quiz right there. And then you can have that, assessment if you like. And again, if you want to use third-party tools, you can have interactivity. So we are at a time. That's been half an hour, so I'm gonna cut it right there. I think James is going to share the slide deck with you. I realize that was a bit fast, probably hard to kind of follow along, but there is a tutorial video in that slide deck.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you very much. Yeah, I did drop the slide deck into the comments a little bit earlier, so they've definitely got that. Nate, I'm going to say before we get onto that, awesome session as always. I always learn so much from your Earth sessions. They're a brilliant tool. So very much enjoyed that.
Cheers. We have to do tour creators someday. Another cool one. Link to Street View.
Welcome back. I've got a few other things to talk about as well, Nate.
Yep.
How's everything in Japan, Nate? School's there? Is your school open? What's going on?
Yeah, our school's open. We are face-to-face with COVID protocols and masks and that kind of thing. And I have to say, I'm very, very proud of our students. They're handling it maturely. They're doing very, very well. Here in Nagoya, yeah, it's going okay. People are doing the right thing. How are things on your side?
Pretty good. Luckily, I'm here in Thailand, and we're very lucky to have a very good situation here.
Yeah.
It's raining every day. It's very humid, but apart from that, everybody's healthy. Everything's good here.
All right, good.
Everyone else around the world, Nate, thank you for giving up your evening. I know it's a little bit late in Japan right now.
It's just 9 o'clock. We're good.
Brilliant. Well, if you don't know it already, I did actually share Nate's YouTube channel and his website as well. Actually, let me just bring up the website, and then everybody can follow all of your resources there and bring up your YouTube channel as well. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Not just for social studies teachers, lots of tutorials there. So
there is a lot of tutorials. Nate does a lot of training. And in fact, I don't know if you mentioned it before, you are a Google innovator.
I'm an innovator. I'm a trainer. I'm an Earth expert. I've been an innovator coach here in Japan for the first cohort. And I think I'm going to go for the coaching certification. I don't know. We'll see. And I'm a GG leader as well. So yeah, I'm very deep into Google. I love it.
Brilliant. Let's talk about that coaching certificate next time. Get on that, Nate, and then we'll have a chat about that one.
Sounds good.
Nate, thank you very, very much. Good night.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your PD, everybody. Some great stuff coming up tomorrow as well.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Nate. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, quick reminder, Acer again, we're very, very lucky to have them as a sponsor for the event. If you want to win a free ticket for a boot camp or a summit over the next few months, please click through to the link here, gsummit.link/Acer. Remember, we showed you the Acer Chromebook Enterprise a little bit earlier, and I'm very excited now to welcome Roberto into the stream. Roberto, Bob, can you hear me okay? Okay, so Bob's got a little bit of a problem with his audio, but he's going to present.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. Just one moment.
Can you hear me properly?
Bob has a bit of a problem with his audio, but we can hear him.
Okay, so excellent.
I'm going to bring his screen in now. Okay, Bob, you can start now.
Okay, thank you very much, James, and good afternoon to everyone. It's going to be a pretty nice experience to me because I'm totally blind. So I know that you can see me, you can hear me, but I cannot interact with you, so please be patient with me. First of all, I would like to thank AppsEvents for this opportunity, because for us as a vendor is always a unique opportunity to talk about what we do, especially to teachers like you. I proudly representing the Acer for Education team here in EMEA. And clearly, as a vendor, the value proposition is pretty easy. I mean, we are producing technology, so we need to ensure to deliver the right technology. What really makes unique then our value proposition is how we are reaching this goal, this important task. the way in which we are approaching the education market is to go through an ecosystem of partners. So we cannot go alone. Schools are very special customers to us. And it's very important that the technology is used properly. So we need to keep constantly updated, talking with the reseller, with the institution, also with the big giant like Google or Microsoft. And then also with entity like AppsEvents that are continually delivering high quality training, where training, we will see in a minute, is going to be a key aspect in order to become a digital school. And then, and this is pretty unique within the vendors landscape, we are also talking directly with schools, because we have decided 3 years ago to put in place a program that we call Teacher Resources, where the idea was to meet with the most innovative school, as the name says, within all our region. So what is nice is that we can share experience and listen to the best practices coming from Norway or South Africa or Kuwait or Italy. So this was really a gold mine, not only for them, because of course they had the opportunity to share their experiences, to have a real deep discussion about not all about the products. Actually, products are not even the focus of this meeting, but it's really about the pedagogy and processes. At the same time, for us, it's very important to listen to them and to understand which are their needs in order to properly adjust our value proposition to what the school are actually asking. And there are things that we actually learn talking with them, and I wanted to share with you. So if I have to choose the three main pillars that all these innovative schools they have in common, the first one is regarding the planning and the development. So Rome wasn't built in a day, and the same could be applicable to a digital school. So you cannot become digital in one day or in 1 year. It requires a very strict and professional planning that is not just about training the teacher or introducing the technology at small step, but it's also important that once the technology is properly implemented, the people, the teachers, and also the students need to be constantly updated. And this is where a company like AppsEvents can really deliver a great value to you. The second thing that we have learned is that the laptop, no matter which is the operating system, at the end, the laptop is giving a lot of opportunities to school, not only in the standard way of learning, but also introducing STEAM-related topics and objects. Because nowadays, the market is full of different solutions that can help you to enhance and empower your way of learning, and that are, of course, developing the very famous soft skill. And the third one is regarding, is concerning the versatility. So the devices nowadays are really giving opportunities to the teachers, to the students, to listen to a class, and no matter what, the experience could be very, very smooth. So in this picture, for instance, that has been taken into a real school in Spain, they were not waiting for us, so we didn't ask them, please be prepared. The students were using the same device in 4 different ways. The way that they found the more useful for them, the more comfortable. But for the teacher, the experience was totally smoothless. There was no difference. So this is another great benefit about the current technology that we are capable to offer right now. We are talking about Chromebooks. If we're going to look at the market, especially in EMEA, we are expecting that at the end of the 2020, 1 notebook out of 3 is going to be a Chromebook. So the results have been remarkable, considering that they started to enter the education market only 7 years ago. So why they became so popular across so many countries in Europe? There are, in my view, 3 things that are making the Chromebook the most desirable or better. Why the schools are deciding to go for Chromebook? The first one is because they are extremely ready and fast. So teachers were telling us it's important for us that the device can be up and running in a matter of few seconds, or if I have to ask my students to close the notebook because I need to grab their attention, I want them to listen to me for a minute and then to be back operative, having an operating system and a device that can be up and running in just a matter of seconds is really a great value. So this was indeed one of the rationale that we hear the most talking with school. The second one is clearly about the security. With the Chromebooks, there are no antivirus. The system is fully protective, fully backup. So there is no issue on, for instance, losing data or everything, because all the data that you're using, all your work is completely synchronized. And on top, thanks to the Google admin console that is part of the education upgrade, you can really have a full control about what your students can do when they are in the classroom. So you can limit the things that they can do. And even from privacy perspective, of course, an account used by a school is different from the Gmail account that you are using for personal uses. So that's why Google decided to have a special attention to special customers like students. And then the simplicity. One of the things is clearly related to the updates. So every Chromebook, no matter what, is receiving one update each 6 weeks. And what is nice is that it's fully transparent. So the only things that the students or the teacher or the IT administrator has to do is just to restart the Chromebook when the system is already updated. So there are no strange messages, and most importantly, you're not losing any seconds in your classroom when you're updating. And then clearly, the Chrome OS, the Chromebook, their success is because of the G Suite for Education. Actually, many schools, we experienced that, they started adopting the G Suite for Education on existing devices with other operating system. And then the natural choice, when there was the time to refresh the hardware, was to use the Chromebook, because clearly one is born to live with the other. So that it's a perfect combination, the Chromebook with the G Suite for Education. And I also wanted to highlight some of the frequently asked questions, because Chromebook in many markets is completely new. I'm Italian, and I'm listening to all these questions every time that we are introducing the Chromebook, because it's a new device that we are bringing, even though the G Suite is very popular. So, and there are also some false myth that we have to, let's say, face, like the fact that it's not possible to work offline. This is false. Only the very first release of Chrome back in 2012 probably was working only online. But now you can work offline. You can also start a document in the offline mode. So this is not valid anymore. There is no need of antivirus. This topic, the third question, is very important for parents. They can decide, for instance, to purchase the Chromebook for their kids, but at the same time, they can use and they can upload, they can sign in with their own personal account. So this is another great advantage of using the Chromebook with a system that is cloud-based. The fact that you can use different accounts with all of them, the specific settings in terms of privacy. So it's very easy to switch from one to another. We can install programs from the Play Store, and even if at the moment it's not possible to use the device that, for instance, we're using in the desktop mode in Windows, there are a lot of work in the providing the same experience with virtual machine. So it's not available yet, but many companies and Google itself are working to fill this gap. The management, we saw it already, is very crucial and it's very easy to be done. And the security, I cannot really lose my data. Every single digit I type is automatically stored. And most importantly, the G Suite for Education experience is totally free. Clearly, this is valid for all the Chromebook. But then when it comes to Chromebook for Education, why the Chromebook for Education are different, for instance, from the one that I can find in a retail shop or even on Amazon? Well, there are two main topics. The first one is that the Chromebook for education are versatile. There are different models, of course. There are the standard form factor or the convertibles. The convertibles are very key because you can really use them, as we have seen before in the picture taken in the school from Spain, in 4 different ways. So either in the standard, let's say, clamshell mode, or in the display mode or tent mode. Display mode, when I just need to maybe share my content or view a video or a document. And then the tablet mode, this one, yes, tablet mode. With the tablet mode, there was another feature that at the very beginning, the Chromebook for education didn't have, but we were asked to. As these devices are used also by primary school students, where of course they don't have the smartphone, still many teachers were willing to capture videos or picture with the Chromebook. So they asked us, how can we do it with a Chromebook? Because of course, using the front camera, imagine to take a picture in this way, it could be very complicated. So we have added on selected models a second camera here on the keyboard. Why is the camera position here? Because if I'm using the Chromebook in a tablet mode, I can use it like if I'm using a tablet, for instance, when the camera is on the back. So I can easily take a picture or a video. So for all those teachers that are willing to have the video content capturing as an asset, now with this kind of device, they can use it. And also some models, they also have a pen that is a garage in the chassis. And at the moment, we're using a technology that doesn't require any battery. So there is no risk of losing small batteries or to charge the pen. That, of course, is mainly adopted by a secondary school, even though this is, of course, can be different from country to country. And the full functional USB Type-C port. Most of our Chromebook, they have 2 of these ports. Why they are important? For instance, now I'm using a Chromebook, and thanks to the USB Type-C port and with an adapter, a dongle, I have the Ethernet port, I have the VGA port, I have my USB port. So this full functional is very important because there are no limits in the terms of extension that you can plug to the device. But then what really makes the difference between a device for education and a device for the retail is the durability. So all our Chromebook for education are designed to last and to resist to a classroom environment. So they have a certified durability. It means that they have military standard specs. They can resist up to 122 centimeters of drop 8. The keyboard. So they have anchored keys. It means that if I try to remove a single key, it's not possible because there is a mechanical system that is avoiding to do that. And also is spill resistant. So depending on the model, I can spill up to 300 millimeters of water, and the Chromebook can still work. So this, of course, in the way, considering that this Chromebook can really be used by students of 6 or 7 years old, being ready to the maluse of the products is very important. And then, last but not least, the battery life, because clearly offering at least 10 hours of battery life makes the life of teacher very easy, because they are sure that let's say that it's impossible that the Chromebook can be out of battery during a normal lesson. And if you're curious to know which are the model or at least the form factor that are mostly adopted by school, at the first place there is actually the convertible 11-inch, so a compact size that can fit with a backpack, but convertible. Second place with a clamshell, standard form factor, still small. This, of course, it depends also on the budget. So clearly, this is the entry level. And then we are seeing a huge demand, especially this year, on the 14-inch for teacher and also for the secondary students. This, as I said, was just an overview. And something new that is coming is actually a device with a different form factor. So it's not visible because I should have another device to compare, but the screen ratio of the standard Chromebook is 16:9. This is 3.2. So it means that it fits more with the document size. So thanks to this, for instance, if you're opening a document like a letter, or if you are visiting a web page, you have 20% more of space with the same display size. And this is becoming more and more popular. It's a new screen size that we launched recently, and many schools, they really like this idea of having more space while working on their document. This was all for my speech. I just close my things with all the different activities that we are doing. We have a special blog that we have designed for teachers that is full of trend in education, articles about innovative technology. So please go and visit us, or you can follow one of the different social channel, or contact me for any additional information that you are willing to know from us. I don't know if there is any question. Otherwise, I hand over to James.
Thank you, Bob. I don't know if you can hear me now, Bob. I think we have a problem with our audio, but thank you very much. I'm going to just take Bob out there, and just to summarize very quickly what Bob mentioned back then was about the durability. Very, very lucky a couple of years ago to go to Acer Taiwan and meet with their development team and their testing team for the Chromebook testing team. And during the testing team, they showed dropping the Chromebook on the floor, and of course, pouring glasses of water into the Chromebook. And also the most popular thing, picking the Chromebook up by the screen. It just shows how strong they are. Really excellent devices. If you want some more information about those Chromebooks, please just drop. So let me just remove that. I'm going to share. Please do drop an email to Acer for Education. The EMEA team is very, very helpful. They have all of the details about the Chromebooks that are available to you. Okay, well, we've come to the end of our Summer Summit. I want to say thank you very much to Sethi. And I think you saw Sethi on Acer's blog there as well with one of his videos. Of course, Sethi produces videos for his channel, Flipped Classroom Tutorials. He produces videos for AppsEvents and the Acer channel as well. Thank you very much to Dan Pardy, to Nate Gildart as well, who talked about the Geo tools. And then, of course, thank you very much to Bob from Acer as well. Thank you to all of you for being with us. And maybe you're watching this after the event. You're going to see all of the resources from the speakers in the description for this YouTube stream. Aside from that, that's it from me here in Asia. In just a few hours, I think in about 3.5 hours, the Europe Summit will be starting up, when you can hear from, I believe you'll be hearing from Ben Rouse and from Gitto Aaron as well, and Bob will be joining us again. Thank you, everybody, and good night.